Namaste. I'm Manju Kak. Welcome to the third session of our 6-weekly workshop on Pakistan-occupied territories of India, organized by Jammu Kashmir Study Center. A quick recall for those who have joined us only today. JK Study Center is a think tank dedicated to the academic study and dissemination of facts on Jammu and Kashmir. The workshop is being conducted by Alok Bansalji, who is the director of India Foundation, a geopolitical expert with special focus on the occupied territories of India, and the author of various books on the region, including Gilgit-Baltistan and its Saga of human rights violations, and the occupied territories of Bharat. Alokji started week 1 with an introduction to the regions of Jammu Kashmir occupied by Pakistan. He provided us with a deep insight into the population, demography, political, and the administrative frameworks, along with the recent developments in the region. He's highlighted the cultural, the social, linguistic linkages of these regions with India. Last week onwards, a detailed discourse on these regions has started. And we looked at Mirpur and Muzaffarabad regions to begin with, and Alokji provided us with the facts that uncovered the facade of democracy and the independence as claimed by Pakistan for this region. We really thank Alokji for sharing his valuable thoughts on the subject and look forward to today's session on understanding Gilgit-Baltistan, a region that is renowned for its breathtaking landscapes, cold deserts, snow-capped mountains, and a very rich cultural heritage. According to Raj Tirangani, this region was known as Daradadesha, was a resort of Buddhist monks and preachers. Even Chinese pilgrim Fayan in his documentation has recorded how Buddhism flourished and thrived in this region. In our first session, Alokji showed us videos of Gilgit-Baltistan and people protesting against the oppression and deprivation of human rights that they're facing under the Pakistani regime. Well, there's a very tragic state of this region at the moment. Let us understand more about this region from our expert.
This is going to be the third workshop in this session, and we'll be discussing Gilgit-Baltistan, which is now called as Pakistan occupied territory of Ladakh ever since the reorganization of the Jammu Kashmir state. Now we need to understand that whenever we people would talk that Jammu Kashmir is strategically the most significant part of South Asia, within Jammu and Kashmir, the most significant part of Jammu and Kashmir has been Gilgit-Baltistan. It is strategically the most significant part of former Jammu and Kashmir. It is the part which connects Pakistan to China. If there was no Gilgit-Baltistan, there was no CPEC, because the CPEC passes through this particular region, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is actually a very, very significant component of Belt and Road Initiative of China. It's a highland which dominates access to Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, and through them to Central Asia. Bulk of Pakistan's freshwater resources emanate from this region. So the fresh water which Pakistan gets, bulk of it actually originates from this area. The river Indus passes through it, and most of its tributaries pass through this particular region. This region is also extremely rich in mineral resources. In fact, it has enormous tourism potential till 98. Almost 80% of the tourists coming to Pakistan would visit Gilgit-Baltistan. So that important it was. And it has that much of potential as far as tourism is concerned. It has immense hydropower potential. There are big dams which are coming up. In fact, Northern Indus Cascade, which China is building, has numerous dams that are being planned under this particular project. Just to show you our views, as I said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we need to have a look at how this place looks at. And this is one of the Fonder River, which you can see. This is Gilgit, how it looks in autumn. These are pictures, dates, which I'm trying to show. This is again another lake, which is near Skardu. This is the Karakoram Highway, which connects China with Pakistan. And this is, of course, the last village in Gilgit-Baltistan before China border. It's known as Hossainabad. This is near Sust. Sust, which is a dry port. Sust is a dry port in China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So bulk of the Chinese goods which come from China get disembarked at Sust, and from there they are taken to Gwadar or Karachi. This is the base camp, Koborse camp, which is base camp for K2 Godwin-Austen, which is the second highest mountain peak in the world. This is, of course, the newly constructed Karakoram highway, because a large part of Karakoram highway had to be redesigned because it went under the Bhasha Dam construction. So this is the newly constructed Karakoram highway as seen on so-and-so. This is, of course, Nanga Parvat base camp, which is seen from the Gilgit-Baltistan side. If those of you who remember, I had shown you from Mirpur Muzaffarabad side also in the last particular thing. This is a PIA plane. Gilgit has been an airfield for a long time, but we have seen a lot of accidents taking place in Gilgit airfield. It's a difficult airfield, and there have been a lot of crashes and a lot of problems as far as aircraft landing in Gilgit is concerned. This is, as I said, is divided into 14 districts, which are in 3 divisions. It's surrounded by Xinjiang in China, Wakhan corridor of Afghanistan, Chitral and Kohistan district of Pakistan, besides other parts of Pakistan occupied Jammu, Kashmir, and other parts of Ladakh. Now, Chitral and Kohistan, incidentally, also have a history of being part of Jammu and Kashmir, especially the Principality of Chitral was a vassal of Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir. For some strange reasons, we did not stake claim to it in 1947, and now today it's part of Pakistan. What is more important is that the 8 out of world's 25 highest peaks, there are only 25 peaks in the world which are about 25,000 feet, out of which 8 are located in this particular region, which includes K2 Godwin-Austen, which is the second highest peak in the world, and legally the highest peak in Indian territory. 3 longest glaciers outside the polar region are in this particular area. So if you leave the polar region, that is North Pole and South Pole, the 3 longest glaciers are in this particular region. 5,000 square kilometers Devsai Plateau at an altitude of 4,115 meters, which is the second highest plateau in the world, also is in this particular region. These are the district boundaries, just to give you an idea. This is 14 districts as they are. You can have a look. And this is how the area and population is. We need to understand that Pakistan has not publicized the census reports of Gilgit-Baltistan after 2011. Consequently, the new districts which have come into being, their details are still not available. Some of these new districts have come up subsequently, and their details are not available in any of these maps. And this is, of course, just a few more pictures just to show you how this place is. This is Devsai Plateau, which I said is the second highest plateau in the world. Again, another picture of Devsai Plateau. This is a lake in the western part of Devsai Plateau. It's at an altitude of, as I said, 13,497 feet. This is Hunza Valley, how it looks. This is a very interesting point near Gilgit, which is known as Alam Bridge, close to Alam Bridge, which is considered as the meeting point of Karakoram range with Himalaya and Hindu Kush. So it's actually a point where they feel that the 3 mountain ranges meet. This is, of course, a picture about 2 years back. That is on 16th March 2021. This is another picture of Skardu. Now, ethnically, the region is inhabited by people speaking. Now, this Gilgit-Baltistan is ethnically divided into 2 parts. One is Gilgit area and Chilas division, which is in the past history was called as Dardistan. It was called Dardistan, and the people here are called Dardik. They speak Indo-Aryan and Iranian. Most of the languages that they speak are Indo-Aryan and Iranian in origin. And the languages which they speak are Shina, Domaki, Kohistani, Khowar, which is also spoken in Chitral, and Wakhi, which is spoken in parts of Afghanistan, Xinjiang, and Tajikistan in the high mountains. Besides this, they also have a language isolate called Brushushki, which is actually a language which has no brother sister. So it's a very unique language which is spoken in Gilgit-Baltistan. Those who study languages actually like to know about Brushushki. And in the Baltistan, the people are basically from the Tibetan stock. They're ethnically Tibetan. and they speak a language called Balti, which is similar to what is spoken in Ladakh. And that is the, as far as the linguistic diversity amongst the people is concerned. As far as religion is concerned, almost 10% population is Muslim at this point of time. However, Islam came into this area from different parts and at different times. And as a result, people have very many pre-Islamic beliefs, which we will cover next workshop. And you will find that the beliefs vary from each valley to valley, because it's a mountainous region with valleys which are insulated by generally from outside interference. Consequently, valleys follow different faiths, different beliefs, different. Just to give you an example, in Hunza, people adhere to Ismaili belief. They are the followers of His Highness Aga Khan. Aga Khan Foundation plays a very, very good role. Consequently, the Human Development Index in Hunza, which is one of the remotest regions in South Asia, is very, very high, because Aga Khan Foundation has done a wonderful job. People are fairly liberal, open-minded because of Ismaili belief. The other side of the river is a place called Nagir. And in eastern Gilgit, people follow 12er Shia, which is known as Ithnai Sharia, which is the official religion of Iran. When you come further south, Shinkari, near Chilas and all, people follow Sunni faith. Whereas in Baltistan, most people are adherents of 12er Shia, which is again Ithnai Sharia. There are some people who follow Nur Bakhshi sect, especially in north and northeastern Baltistan. Now, Nur Bakhshi sect is a unique sect which is found only in this part, both sides of the line of control. We also have people, Nur Bakshiyas, living in Bogdan, Partapur, etc., some of the villages on Jammu, in Ladakh. The sectarian fissures have become grave. Now, these sectarian fissures, because you have 10% people who are Muslims, but despite that, these sectarian differences have increased with the passage of time, and this has been creating problems. As I said, there are disturbances, there are people who are protesting. I had shown some pictures of the recent pictures, but these are some old pictures which you need to understand. This gentleman who you see, his name is Manjur Parwana. He heads an organization called Gilgit-Baltistan United Movement and Liberation Movement, and he has been protesting against Pakistani occupation. You can see some of their pictures here. This is Manjur Parwana reading protests against Gilgit-Baltistan administration. This is another organization called Balwaristan National Front, which is protesting. This is Manjur Parwana, who is protesting against torture that's been going on against citizens of this area. What are the causes of this alienation? As I said, in Gilgit-Baltistan, the alienation against Pakistani control is quite high. And one of the reasons for this is that political rights were systematically denied to them consistently till 2008-13. Now also they have some notional political rights, but real no autonomy. In fact, most of the major decisions pertaining to Gilgit-Baltistan are taken by Islamabad. And even now, people who can contest elections, etc., have to swear that they have to take an oath that they support Pakistan's occupation or merger with this part's merger with Pakistan, and then only they can contest the elections. So that is the level of protest. Even more important is that unlike other Mirpur Muzaffarabad, as early as 1970s, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto replaced the state subject rule, which allowed outsiders to migrate to this particular region. And consequently, the demographics in this particular part has changed drastically. And we find that outsiders, especially from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab, etc., have started moving in a big way. And the population has been increasing very, very significantly. And this is one of the reasons why, if you look at it, you can see that between 98 and 2011, the population increased by 63.1%, almost 4.85% per annum. And what is even more important is that 2017 census figures for Gilgit-Baltistan have not been made public to date. Though rest of the territories, all Pakistani states, all census details are public, but Gilgit-Baltistan population census report has not been made public because they realize that once they make it public, there'll be huge protest. Now you can easily see that the district which borders Pakistan, that is the Daimar district which borders Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the population nearly doubled at 6.18% per annum. The Gilgit district, the population increased to 76.6%, which is 4.44% per annum. This inordinate increase in population of Gilgit-Baltistan very clearly shows that there has been large-scale migration from Pakistan to this particular territory. There is another problem that all the government officials in this region, most of the higher government officials come from outside. Even Northern Light Infantry, which is nothing but a follow-up of the Gilgit Scouts of the British era, now has troops from outside. In fact, unlike when it used to be purely a local troops. And this is what we have been seeing. Generally, all the people who are coming and governing, the finance secretary, chief secretary, etc., are from outside. But this area is extremely rich as far as the mineral deposits are concerned. There is a report which says there are huge gold deposits. If you go back into history, you'll realize that during Maharaja's rule, the principalities here used to pay their taxes to Maharaja in terms of gold dust. They used to siphon off the sand and they used to filter it, and the gold used to come out from this, which they used to present to Maharaja. The taxation to Maharaja was in gold dust. So gold reserves are there. There are huge reserves of marble, both white and black. There is emerald, there's mica, there's copper sulfate, there are iron ore mines, there are lead, antimony, agriculture, tourism. And in terms of hydropower potential, there are thousands and thousands of megawatts, tens of thousands of megawatts of hydropower potential, which is unharnessed, and people are trying to harness it. But despite these sort of huge economic resources, you can see that the development is pretty bad. You can see a bridge which was washed almost 10 years back. Even today, a woman with a child is crossing on 2 wires or ropes. This is the level of thing. This you can see in Gilgit, where people are protesting because they have not got water for 2 weeks. Although Gilgit-Baltistan supplies waters to rest of Pakistan, and in fact, most of the water supply for rest of Pakistan comes from this particular part. This is another bridge which has gone away, and people are using a makeshift arrangement to cross this particular place. This is, of course, just 2 years back. You can see people, the roads have disappeared. People are walking because the buses cannot cross, so they are doing this. Even Glacial Lake, this is a very recent case. The recent floods actually broke away certain bridges, so this we can see. This is a very interesting thing. This is a huge lake called Attabag Lake, which is a glacial lake outburst. In fact, the roads, bridges, etc., a large area and a village has also actually gone under. And as a result, people have been cut off, and that's been the case. And this is another picture of that Attabad Lake. Large tracts of road were also buried. Now they've made some alternate arrangements. One of the biggest problems in this part of the world is that in Gilgit-Baltistan, there's a huge sectarian conflict. That I said, as despite being a followers of Islam, there are huge divides, and the divide is not only between Shias and Sunnis. There are communities like Nur Bakshis and Ismailis who are also being targeted. And of late, Taliban has started making its presence felt in this particular area. There was a spokesperson of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan who actually hailed from this particular area, and there have been huge sectarian violence, cases of sectarian violence. The sectarian violence here primarily emanates from what happens in Pakistan, where it has been a natural corollary of the question as to when you say that Pakistan, Muslims of the subcontinent are a separate nation, then the first question that was asked was, who is a Muslim? And Pakistan has not been able to define as to who is a Muslim till date. And that actually led to conflicts. From 53 onwards, there have been sectarian conflicts. And now, whatever happens in Pakistan has its repercussions in Gilgit-Baltistan. General Ziaul Haq, when he was ruling, he tried to introduce Sunni Deobandi Islam in this particular region, which is a Shia majority region, and the Shias protested in May 1988. And that is the time when Zia ordered Brigadier Parvez Musharraf, who was in this area, to teach them a lesson, who brought people from outside, who killed and destroyed Shia property. And since then, sectarian riots have been taking place on and off. Whenever the people of this region demand their democratic rights, there have been sectarian riots. And of course, there's a long list. If I start going into it, you can see when Zia died, his death anniversary was Shias used to celebrate it. There were again riots. In 2004-2005, 1 full year, all educational institutions remained closed because there was a conflict between Islamiyat and Urdu textbook, because Shia said it did not represent their waypoint. And this, of course, took place. The leader of Shia community, Aga Ziauddin, resolved it, and he was shot dead. He was killed. And then there was huge riots, which continued for weeks. The IGP of northern areas, at that, as it was called in those days, was shot dead on 23rd March 05. And IGP is the senior most police official, please remember. Buses have been stopped. People have been forced to get down belonging to other sects, and they have been fired. There are numerous attacks. If you actually look at it, we could discuss it. And these attacks are not only against Shias, as I said, they are also against Noor Bakshis and Smileys. The judges have been killed. The deputy speaker has been killed. There was also a time when, if you remember, there was a time when mountaineers were killed. Nanga Parbat base camp at 4,200 meters, 10 foreign mountaineers were killed. Anything that happens in Pakistan, there are repercussions as far as there is here. Buses which come to Gilgit-Baltistan pass through Pakistani territory sometime, and Sunni majority areas where they have been stopped and killed many a times. So this is just to show that this violence has been endemic in this particular area. The army colonels, captains, senior superintendent of police, etc. All sorts of government officials have been targeted. This is, of course, you can see a very clearest manifestation that what is happening in Pakistan has an impact. Here, people are protesting in Gilgit-Baltistan against Hazara killing in Quetta. So this sort of things also continue to happen in this part. Just last slide, which I just wanted to say, we had the last elections on November 2020. Again, like I told you, there are 24 directly elected seats and 6 for women and 3 technocrats, which are indirectly elected. The last elections, the PTI had that is Imran Khan's party, which was ruling at that point of time, had won most of the seats. And this particular election also saw that the Shia sectarian party, Majlis-e Wahajat Muslimin and Jamayatul Ulama Islam, also won seats. And more importantly, Nawaz Khan Nazi, who is the leader of the Balwaristan National Front, of course, one of the breakaway factions, also won a seat, although the party was not allowed to contest as an independent. This in sum total, I think, is what I wanted to tell you as to how we need to understand what Gilgit-Baltistan is. And again, I will reiterate the same thing which I had said last time. A nation loses its territory, not when it is occupied, but when it is forgotten. And with that, I would like to take any questions if you may have on this particular subject. And I'm open to question answers. Thank you.
Has asked, Sanjay ji has asked about where is Saksham Valley located. I think he would like to, if you have any map, Alok ji, which, you know, where you can show him.
Saksham Valley, I had shown it in my first presentation, if you remember. Let me see if I can show you the map. Just give me a second. I will show you where Saksham Valley is located. If you can see this map, this is Saksham Valley. If you can see, this is where Gilgit-Baltistan is, this is where Saksham Valley is, and this is where Siachen Glacier is. I hope you are able to see this.
Yes, yes, we are. Thank you.
Yeah.
And even Sanjay ji is quite happy to see that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Dipankar Kaulji has a question that it was mentioned during the presentation that Taliban is present, TTP is present. So it indicates the height of radicalization of the local people from that region. So how critical it is of Taliban, come so close to India, how is it different from the presence of other militant organizations operating from POJK?
See, Taliban coming into this region shows a high level of radicalization that is taking place, especially in an area which is sectarianly polarized. Taliban is a rabid Sunni organization, and this is aggravating the sectarian tensions in this particular case, which is also raising. But it also threatens us that this ideology is likely to percolate across the line of control and pose a great threat to us. So, as I have always maintained, the Taliban's presence either in Afghanistan or in this part is extremely, extremely dangerous as far as India is concerned. And that's, of course, a very, very dangerous proposition.
Thank you, Alok. Actually, I have a related question. Then shouldn't India think about getting back its land, not only because it is an integral part of India, but from India's security point of view, because these lands are getting used for a lot of anti-India operations. You had mentioned in the Mirpur Muzaffarabad region last time how some of those infrastructures are there, the anti-India infrastructure are there, and with Taliban's presence. So what are your thoughts on that?
See, this area, as I said, is very, very strategically important. It's first point, you must know that this is historically our area, culturally our area. We shouldn't have any doubts about it. I think this is our territory, and that's most important. If we look at geostrategically, it's very, very important because if this territory is with you, there is no linkage between Pakistan and China, which is very important. It also gives you an access to Afghanistan, a direct access, which we have de jure, but we don't have de facto access to Afghanistan today. And consequently, we have to depend on Pakistan, and that prevents our access to Central Asia. We've had such a long time when we have had this sort of a problem, which has existed. So this is a very serious issue, which we need to take cognizance of. And as I said, once we cover it tomorrow and day after, we'll come to know that this particular area, next workshop and next to next workshop on October, we will come to know that this area, the people have the greatest alienation and anger against Pakistan, as we have shown. They also have cultural and historical strong linkages with India. But as I said, it is undoubtedly geostrategically a very, very significant area and with huge economic potential. As I said, huge hydropower potential, huge tourism potential, and large number of mineral deposits.
So, you just spoke about the cultural, Gilgit-Baltistan being very, the cultural affinity with India. But then today, and you also mentioned about, the anger against the Pakistan as a state. But today, given the situation, the political situation, maybe that they may want an independent country rather than be part of India. So what is the on-ground political situation?
There is no doubt that there is a section of society in Gilgit-Baltistan which is actually agitating for an independent state. There is a very, very strong independent movement. There is no doubt about it. And that's what is the fact as of now, because the people feel they have a distinctive culture, they have a distinctive cultural identity, they have a distinctive linguistic identity, which actually gives them a credence that they are demanding an independent state. But a sovereign entity in this part will be very, very difficult. And I think it will have to bank on one of the two neighboring states. And that's where I think anger or angst against Pakistan is leading some section of the society to ask for their merger with India, as it is part of India, and they also know the historical and cultural linkages with India.
Okay, a corollary to that, as compared to the Mirpur Muzaffarabad, which is purely between India and Pakistan. This, as you explained, is CPC is involved. So China will have a big stake. So from a geopolitical situation, what is the what is going to be the situation, or what is the current state in terms of China's involvement, managing, mismanaging, like they do in many countries, what is their situation and take on the Gilgit-Baltistan?
See, what's happened is the large number of Chinese projects are being undertaken in Gilgit-Baltistan. And for many of these, they have brought workers from China. And some of these are from PLA's workers force also, who are working in these projects, many of them. There is, as I said, there is a problem all over Pakistan, which also the influence moves into these occupied territories also. That is, that anybody and everyone who's fighting the Pakistani state or Pakistani government, they invariably target the Chinese citizens because they perceive them to be a softer target, and they also realize that it is easier, it has a greater impact on Pakistani government if you target the Chinese. So as a result, Chinese citizens have been on the fireworks of be it Taliban, be it any anti-state organization. And since radicalization is growing in this particular part, we are seeing that Chinese are at threat. Some of the Chinese projects are doing well. Some of them, not only in this part, but in Mirpur, Muzaffarabad also, where Neelam Valley project is going on. There are huge problems with that, as you know. Pakistanis, this state has been actually targeting the Chinese company, which has come saying that they have not fulfilled certain obligations. The certain projects which have been conceived are problematic. There are issues. Neelam Valley Dam has been closed. But as I said, there are issues with Chinese. But as such, there is no huge movement against Chinese in that part, except in Hunja Valley, which actually owned Shaksgam Valley. So in '63, when Sino-Pak agreement was signed, the people in Hunza, of course, did feel that their territory has been given to China. And that's where there was a huge protest in this particular part. There is another issue which has happened is large number of people from Gilgit-Baltistan who are in the border areas have been going to China, to Xinjiang. And some of them have families there. What happens is that Islam permits multiple families, and many of them have actually gone there, married Uyghur ladies or something, and they had families, and they would transit between this. So when China started cracking down on Uyghurs, many of these wives and children have been taken to those re-education camps. So there have been occasions when people have protested against those protests, the relocation, because they have not been able to communicate with their families for days or things. I'm not aware of what is happening exactly now, but it was just some times back, a few months back, when there were protests saying that they're not able to contact their families and things like that.
Anji asked, then does India claim Suction Valley with China? You know, because it was gifted to China by Pakistan. So does India claim Suction Valley?
Yes, we do claim Shaksgam Valley. We believe, if you actually would have seen my first presentation where I had given an introduction, I had said very categorically that this 5,120 square kilometers Shaksgam Valley has been illegally ceded by Pakistan to China, and India believes Shaksgam Valley is ours, and we show it in our map. Now, we don't show other parts which are north of that. There are certain areas where, again, there are certain claims of India, like Raskam Valley, which is north of Shaksgam Valley, or Tagdumbash Pamir, which is north of Gilgit-Baltistan. Those were the areas which were part of India at some stage, rather saying that part of Jammu and Kashmir state and its vassals at some part of time, which we don't claim today, some of them officially. That's how it's the state.
My question is that what should be a roadmap to take back POK? What will be the punitive measures, like with respect to, like like for our military and political control of Gilgit-Baltistan area and POK, keeping in mind their nuclear deterrent and their leftist propaganda?
See, first thing which we need to understand is that we need to understand the region. As I said earlier, that first you to know about the region. There is an all-pervasive ignorance as far as India is concerned by and large, and Indians also. So we need to firstly know what the region is. The secondly is we have to reach out to the population. We have to ensure that the population understand what India, a population should see The contrasted with Pakistan, a country which has $4.5 billion as foreign exchange reserves. On the other hand, India with one of the largest foreign exchange reserves in the world, an economy which is galloping ahead, another economy which is actually crumbling. So that is second part. We have to reach out to the people because people have certain genuine grievances against Pakistan. We need to provide for them. If they are saying that their language and culture is being marginalized, we need to study that culture and language and promote it. So that is the second part. And third is, of course, we have to see how Pakistan crumbles and what we can do or what we need to do, because eventually it is that moment when we would probably be in a position to do that. And we have to wait, to bid your time. This is our territory. As long as we remember that this is our territory and we keep remembering it, we will get that territory. As I said, the Jews were away from Jerusalem for thousands of years, but they would every year meet and say next year in Jerusalem. So as long as you have that urge in you that you will be there, you will be there. When difficult to say, I'm not an astrologer or a soothsayer, but you will come to know someday it will. You have to wait for that opportune moment, which will come, I can assure you. And that is only if you do not forget it. So that's very important, that you have to remember that this is our territory. We have to get it back. That's all.
Alok ji, dhanyawad for your description. I missed the first two sessions, but just a broad question really. I know you explained the Jews example, but Jews were surrounded by all the illegal people with just bows and arrows, while here we are with China and Pakistan with nuclear powers, and even probably Iran. So the broad question is, realistically speaking, what is the time frame we are looking before the window closes permanently, considering that we are surrounded by the nuclear weapons?
I personally feel that the window never closes permanently. And the weapons that your enemies have is commensurate with what you have. And this is not going to be a purely a military venture. In fact, please understand, the Jews did not get Jerusalem originally by military. The Jews did not get Israel by military actions alone. You have to work for it politically also. And that's where I said you have to reach out to the population, see how Pakistan functions. The way Pakistan is facing the problems today, they are acute problems. There is a political problem, there is an economic problem, there is actually an acute problem. They have created Pakistan on the basis of certain ideology. That ideology is creating a problem. You see TTP, they brought in Taliban to power in Afghanistan, and now TTP is targeting Pakistan. They wanted a strategic depth in Afghanistan, but today Taliban has a strategic depth in Pakistan. So there are issues, and personally, again, it's a personal viewpoint, I don't see Pakistan lasting too long.
Just on the top of it, and that's what my question was, that because Pakistan state is so fragile, that puts it into the lap of China, which makes a bigger problem. Dealing with Pakistan individually is easy for India, I think, but because it goes, the more unbalanced it becomes, the more it goes into the Chinese lap just to counter us. So how do you see that equation? I mean, what direction do you see there?
See, as I said, of course, it's a longer topic, but I just wanted to tell you that in Pakistan, there is a significant section of society, because of their radical Islam. All radical Islamists are anti-China too, please understand, because of various reasons. And there are problems. Please understand, China and Pakistan, the state level, they may come together, but societies are quite different. And as a result, wherever the China has invested, the Chinese citizens are extremely threatened within Pakistan. They are one of the most protected people. The government of Pakistan is trying their best to protect them, because the moment they move around, they have been targeted. And they've been targeted by myriad actors. So while China wants to support Pakistan, but there are concerns within China as far as Pakistan is concerned. They have seen how things have happened. They were hoping that Pakistan will be able to manage Afghanistan for them. That Pakistan has failed. You have seen what happened in Kabul, where the hotel where Chinese used to stay was targeted. And China may be militarily a strong power, but I think China's now growth is going to start slowing down. It's already started slowing down. It will start tapering up. And I think Pakistan and Chinese society by nature is not a giving society. China has not given any substantial financial aid to Pakistan. Whatever has been given is loans, 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 and loans with sovereign guarantees. There are already problems. In Gwadar, they are trying to create a territory which is again being objected by locals. So there are protests against China. This China-Pakistan collusion and China-Pakistan partnership is not as rosy as people sometimes in India feel. That's one thing which I just want to tell you.
There's a question by Dr. Gautam Kaulji who raises a question saying that, has government of India thought about the representatives, giving space to representatives from that particular region? I know you've mentioned that in the first session, but yeah, he would like to understand if there has been any progress on this.
Unfortunately, it's not happened, though constitutionally we have provisions, we had provisions for that in Jammu Kashmir Assembly earlier, where the territory of this territory was to be represented in that particular area. Their constituencies were reserved, but no elections were conducted. I have been a very strong votary that we should conduct elections for these areas. Maybe we conduct it virtually, or we conduct it with those people who have migrated from this region. Because there are people migrated from Gilgit-Baltistan who are in India. There are people from Gilgit-Baltistan all over the world. We can easily do an election for all these constituencies. We can recognize the constituencies and have an election where people can get elected and they can be brought and kept in the constituencies which are here. This is how Taiwan used to function. This is how I told you in Mirpur, Muzaffarabad, they have a system where assembly has representatives who have actually in different parts of Pakistan, living in different parts of Pakistan, who have been allowed to get elected and come there. Even people who are abroad have also been allowed to come and work. So that's a very worthwhile suggestion. I have been recommending it. But Government of India must be having its compulsions why they have not done it. I'm sure at some stage they would consider it. Think about it.
Thank you, Alokji. And when you mentioned the number of elected seats, does, like Mirpur Muzaffarabad has seats reserved for refugees in different, from Pakistan, does Gilgit-Baltistan also have that same provision?
No, that doesn't have. That is not there. So as far as Gilgit-Baltistan Assembly is concerned, it doesn't have seats for like that for people who have moved from there. But Mirpur Muzaffarabad has that. That's a very, very significant difference. And there is also a reason, because in Gilgit-Baltistan, people have not really migrated from Gilgit-Baltistan as such to other parts of Pakistan. Though there are a lot of people from Gilgit-Baltistan who are living in Karachi, etc., they have moved for economic reasons. The Pakistan's rationale for that is actually that they have been forced to move or something like that. That's how it is.
Okay.
Thank you, sir, for giving this wonderful lecture and taking us, to understand the GB region as such. In fact, you did mention that the radical Islamists also are not quite favorable to the China as such. And I am one of the luckiest person to be inside Pakistan and perform pujas and havans deep inside various territories of Pakistan and visited on a pilgrimage to various of their temples on multiple occasions. So, and I do understand the feel of the people, of the local people, in fact, from the Pakistan region as such. However, my question is related to the stakeholders of this region, which is primarily we see as Pakistan as the biggest stakeholder or India as a stakeholder. My question is connected to the China. We understand that China extended its boundaries deep inside to Tibet, which was, of course, culturally a separate or an independent geographical, political, or a cultural unit. Tibet was absolutely a different, not a part of the Manchuria, the larger China region, and now it is a part of the very well integrated. Now, my question is, what is the current stand of China on this Gilgit-Baltistan region? Does China in the same way can or mandate in future for a territorial claim in the areas of Gilgit-Baltistan? Also considering that the Gilgit-Baltistan is now separated from the POJK by the Pakistan as included as a part of their own territory, which is now not a part of the POJK. So there are multiple stakeholders, it has become separated from the POJK being a part of Pak, and now China has those, tendencies to annex Tibet So, and Tibet is also connected to GB. So how China is a stakeholder for this region?
See, firstly, we need to know the historical thing, and of course, we'll be covering it tomorrow in greater detail. But we need to understand that Gilgit-Baltistan was separated from POJK right in 1949 after Karachi Accord by Pakistan. Though it keeps attempting to incorporate Gilgit-Baltistan in its territory, it has officially, constitutionally not done so. It keeps publishing sometimes those maps with including Gilgit-Baltistan. It was done by Pakistani embassy in Amsterdam first time in, I think, 2007. They are testing the waters as to how international community and others would do that. So as far as Pakistan's constitution is concerned, Gilgit-Baltistan is also not part of Pakistan, but it is certainly not part of Mirpur Muzaffarabad, which Pakistan tries to call as Azad Jammu and Kashmir. So it is not part of that. So it's a different thing. Though there is a Supreme Court ruling of AJK's Supreme Court, which has ruled that this part should be merged with it, it has not. Now, with 63 border agreement between Sino-Pak, the boundary between China and this part has been delineated very clearly. So Shaksgam Valley has been captured by China, rest of the territory has been given to Pakistan. So this agreement is interim. It says pending the final settlement of Jammu and Kashmir. So if India, as and when we capture, we can renegotiate it. But obviously, having given this, China would not stake claims beyond this as far as this particular region is concerned. Coming to China-Tibet, it's a very complex equation actually. China-Tibet equation is not as simple as we make it out to be very honest. Very often we have perceptions and we have, please remember, as early as 1914, when Britishers called that McMahon line was delineated and we had a Shimla conference in 1914, the Chinese representative was called and the Britishers accepted Tibet under Chinese suzerainty. So that's been the case. It was not under Chinese sovereignty, but it was under British suzerainty, Chinese suzerainty. So that between suzerainty and sovereignty, there is of course a huge plethora of game. So as far as Tibet-China relations are concerned, it's a very, very complex relationship. And that's why post-independent India also took a very nuanced opinion on how when China moved into Tibet and they occupied Tibet. Of course, today, with the benefit of hindsight, there are a lot of issues why we did it. Of course, that's not the charter of this particular talk, so I wouldn't like to do it. But the fact is that the institution of Dalai Lama itself was created by a Chinese dynasty at some stage. So that's where I said. But whenever Tibet was powerful enough, it broke free of China. But China-Tibet equation over the history has been up and down. And today, unfortunately, even His Holiness Dalai Lama says that we are part of China. We are only an autonomous territory of China. So on Tibet, there are issues. As I said, it's very difficult to now get into that. But as far as Gilgit-Baltistan and other areas are concerned, since I'm not talking about the Chinese occupied territories, I won't be covering that. But Gilgit-Baltistan, we'll cover the history tomorrow. We'll look into it in greater details.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session. I have something to understand. Post-independence, there have been several kind of issues, particularly from fundamental Islamists, both in domestic or internationally, which we have been facing. And India also was instrumental to liberate, Bangladesh from Pakistan. But still, it's not necessarily we are getting favorable support from Bangladesh too. So how do you see, we should focus in getting Gilgit-Baltistan, where we will be able to benefit out of this, or, rather getting into further deep trouble? Thank you, sir.
See, firstly, this is a very complex question and I must amplify. Firstly, I don't agree with those who say we have not benefited from the liberation of Bangladesh. We have definitely benefited a lot from the liberation of Bangladesh. Before the liberation of Bangladesh, Pakistan used to consider itself an equal to India, which it does not do that. Secondly, you look at Bangladesh, it has been a success story. The population growth in Bangladesh today is less than India's. Its Human Development Index has actually risen above India's. More importantly, for last 8 years, we have excellent relations with Bangladesh. see, we should not look at internal issues. Some of the internal issues may not be there. I have gone to Bangladesh many a times. The government there is trying to crack down on radical Islamists. The second part, we need to understand that we should not look at all Muslims from one and same angle. See, firstly, please understand, Islam is also not a monolith. It was not a monolith when Prophet was on his deathbed. From that time onward, Islam has never been a monolith. Islam is also divided like every religion is divided. So don't look at Islam in a monolith. As I told you, Gilgit-Baltistan is actually extremely complex despite being an Islamist country. And what threatens us is a radical Islam, which is actually coming up into being. We have Muslim, you see Kargil, the people are very, very peaceful, very, very pro-India. You'll find very nationalistic people. So this sort of perception which some people have that getting Gilgit-Baltistan, I think is not right. And I think we need to shun it completely. Thank you.
Yashodhan ji. And he asked that if you could elaborate a little bit on the role of international players such as Western countries, etc., in Gilgit-Baltistan region.
See, as I said, Gilgit-Baltistan is a very, very important strategically located region. And the fact of the matter is that from 47 for decades, we also did not do anything about this particular region. For at least 4 decades, we did nothing about as far as this particular region is concerned. And so the Western world, especially during the Cold War, was happy with Gilgit-Baltistan being part of Pakistan, because Gilgit was a highland which provided them a peep into the Soviet Union. And it was a very, very ideally located position from where human assets could be run, where technical assets could be launched and things could be done. As of now, the Western approach, to my mind, is, I think, ambivalent. Nobody says anything. They keep going. They realize the importance. And I think at this point of time, the Western world would be very happy if Gilgit-Baltistan was to become India's territory, because that would actually pose a serious obstruction to CPAC. Again, as I said, the British role in 47, 48, a lot has been written about it by various people with different biases, different political opinions. I have a contrary view, and I have never felt that the British had a malified intent as far as Gilgit-Baltistan is concerned. And I have said very clearly, and I have very clear historical reasons to say so. And so I don't think so. But yes, during the Cold War, the Western world was very happy with Gilgit-Baltistan being with Pakistan, because it provided them a very important strategic outpost very close to the Soviet Union. But today, I think Western world has really not come out openly about anything. But if you look at it from 2007, as I said, Baroness Emma Nicholson's report, it's so critical of Pakistan and the occupied, it's the performance in occupied territories. Human Rights Watch, you look at International Crisis Group reports on Gilgit-Baltistan, they are extremely critical of Pakistan and its occupation of these areas. So I'm not trying to say that the governments have changed their stance, but perceptions are changing. And I'm sure we have to do that. And that's where India has, and civil society has to play a role. They have to shape Western perception as far as these territories are concerned.